Welcome students and parents, this is Carl here from BrainDoc Academy. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Hopefully by now you've all had a go at the infamous BrainDoc question that was released last week as part of our free weekly thinking skills program. For those of you that are new here, BrainDoc Academy releases a free practice set of thinking skills questions on our Facebook discussion group, which I'll link below. If you haven't already had a go at the question yet, I would highly encourage you to do so by clicking on our link and downloading Week 1, Set 1, Question 10. Otherwise, without any further ado, let's jump right in. Designs are imported into a computer software which applies checkered and striped arrows to the design. Each arrow causes a specific transformation to the design, whether that's rotating or flipping it. Now we've got 3 examples here of arrows being applied to designs. Alright, now it says that the BrainDoc logo is inserted into the program. We've got a series of 4 arrows that are applied to the logo such that the following transformation occurs, and we've got before and after. Alrighty, which one of the following shows a possible series of arrows that was applied? Now we're given the 4 options. Alright, so the first thing that kind of jumps out to me about this is the fact that 2 striped arrows literally causes no change to the design. It's exactly the same. We can also keep in mind that an arrow is either a flip or a rotation. Considering that there's only 3 things that a striped arrow really might mean. It's either rotate 180 degrees, or flip across a vertical axis, or flip across a horizontal axis. Now at this stage, all 3 of these are possible, and we're not really quite sure yet what a striped arrow actually means. The only way to know for sure is by setting up a case-by-case analysis, which we'll do later on. So before we get into this case-by-case analysis though, I think it's a wise thing to do to have a look at the other arrow first, the dotted arrow, and see what that might mean. Now 2 dotted arrows cause the design to be rotated 180 degrees. So we can kind of imagine that a dotted arrow is a rotation of 90 degrees. The only issue is we don't actually know if it's rotating clockwise or anti-clockwise. That's still okay because we do have a third image which we'll perform case analysis on. So that's where the fun begins. So we're just going to start off with case 1, where we assume that a striped arrow means rotate 180 degrees. Keep in mind that this is just a case analysis. It's not saying that we know for sure it's rotating 180, but we're just assuming because we don't have much other information, and we're just going to go with that for now. Right, so in the third image, a striped arrow is applied first, rotating the design by 180 degrees. Now, after that, the dotted arrow is applied, and this results in another final design. Now, it's evident from this image that the dotted arrow that we're not still unsure about actually represents rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Alright, so now that we've kind of figured out what the 2 arrows might mean, we're going to have a try of the answer options and see if any option actually works. So let's have a look. Let's start by option A. Let's have a look at that. We've got the first arrow, which is a dotted arrow, meaning we're going to have to rotate it by 90 degrees clockwise. So here we go. Now we have a striped arrow, which means we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. We have another striped arrow, so again, same thing, rotate 180 degrees. We're going to finish off with the last arrow, which is a dotted arrow, where we're going to rotate 90 degrees clockwise again. Now this results in a design which isn't exactly the same as the one that we want, so we can safely say that option A in case 1 is incorrect. Now we're going to go on to option B and kind of repeat this process. We're going to go all the way from option B to C to D. It's the same thing, same process, same concept, but after kind of exhausting all the options, we can see that all of those options are incorrect. Right, so that kind of tells us that case 1 may not necessarily work. We're just going to have to move on to case 2 and 3. We're going to start off case 2 by assuming that the striped arrow means flip across a vertical axis. Now in the third image, a striped arrow is applied first, which flips that design across the vertical axis, as we said. Now after that, the dotted arrow is applied, which kind of takes that middle design all the way to the final design. And it's evident from this image also that the dotted arrow would mean rotate 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So again, we're going to try all the options out and see which one works. Now, we know that option A, B, and C are all incorrect, as we can see here. But option D actually works. If we have a look at it, we're going to start off with the normal BrainDoc logo. We're going to go off, first of all, we're going to start with a striped arrow. Now that's what that's going to do, as we established earlier, is that striped arrow is going to flip across the vertical axis. So here we go. The B kind of ends up on the right side, whereas the D, the inverted D, ends up on the left side. Now next we've got a dotted arrow, which means we're going to rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So here we go, 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Then we've got a series of 2 consecutive striped arrows. So we're just going to flip it vertically again and again. Now that doesn't actually do anything to the design, as we can see here. And this design is exactly the same as the one that we want, that's said in the question. So yeah, we can say that option D is definitely possible and it's correct, assuming that case 2 is correct. But we can't really just finish there. I mean, in an exam, it is fair enough that we're just going to finish off there, but for the sake of completeness, we will also go into case 3 to have a look if any answer options from there are correct. Alrighty, here we go, case 3. To start off case 3, we're going to assume that a striped arrow means flip across the horizontal axis. So remember, before it was vertical, now we're going to say that it's horizontal axis flip. Okay, so again, looking at the third image, we have a striped arrow applied first to the original design. Now that's going to flip it across the horizontal axis, as we can see over here. The dotted arrow is then applied, which results in this final design. Now it's evident from this image again that the dotted arrow is 90 degrees rotation in a clockwise direction. Okay, so now that we have this information, we're going to do exactly the same process all over again. Again, options A, B, and C are incorrect. And option D, as we can see here, is correct. So we're just going to go through how option D is correct. So first of all, we're going to start off with a striped arrow, meaning that we're going to flip it across the horizontal axis. So here we go. That didn't do anything at all because it's actually the BrainDoc logo is actually symmetrical across the horizontal axis. All right, next we're going to use a dotted arrow, which is rotating at 90 degrees clockwise. So over here, and then we're going to end off with 2 consecutive striped arrows. So that's going to flip it this way and then flip it that way horizontally. So again, that's not going to do much to the design. Okay, so the design that we've ended up with is exactly the same as the one that we actually want, and we can safely say that option D is correct, because not only is it correct assuming case 2, but it's also correct assuming case 3. And case 1, 2, and 3 are the only ones that are possible. So no matter which case we choose, option D is always going to be correct. So here we have it, option D is your answer. I thought I might wrap this question up by saying that it's definitely a curveball question. It's definitely not an easy question or one that you might expect to do in a short amount of time. With that being said, I think it is very much to be expected in the thinking skills component of the selective test, as we've seen throughout the years 2022, 2021. There's always going to be a couple of 1 or 2, I should say, questions where you need to spend a significant amount of time on it in order to actually get it. Now, what I do recommend in these situations is, first of all, to recognize that they're curveballs and kind of say to yourself, hey, look, maybe in interest of time management, we should skip it first and then come back to it later. So that's the exam technique covered, but during practice, we do definitely want to tackle these kinds of questions just for good exposure. Maybe if you do get the chance to attempt a curveball question, it's always going to be a good thing to have been exposed to it before, so that you have a high chance of getting in the real test. And maybe 1 mark makes all the difference, especially because thinking skills is weighed so heavily in the selective test.